Hello, it's me again. Um, Sorry I keep saying I'm going to come back and then I don't. Not that it matters, but today I'm going to talk about feeling like a robot because I need to make a video because I really want to. I have just been overwhelming myself with all of my different options because I have so many ideas. Um, and I'm a little stuck in choice paralysis. And I want to put together PowerPoints for each of the ideas. And I just got the first one started today. It's going really well, um, but it's just kind of, I need to talk for myself. So, yeah, I am living alone for the first time. It's been about a month and 2 weeks, and I'm feeling incredibly lonely. Um, I think that more than loneliness, I just kind of feel like I miss laughing with people. Um, Not that I was really doing it much when I was living with people, anyways, in my relationships, but I think that going from being in an 8.5 year long relationship where we laughed all the time, I mean, not really close to the end, but for a lot of it, um, to being in two relationships where laughter was there, but it was never really the same. Um, to then being by myself, yeah, that has been very difficult. I am, I don't know, I think I'm a really silly, really fun person. I have a really big sense of humor. I'm usually the one in the relationship that's, cracking the jokes and being a little absurd and out there. And in school, I got in trouble most for being chatty and talking and making people laugh because I want to make people laugh all the time. But with the nature of my personality and everything, I think that it's very hard for me to access that side of myself when I'm alone. It is, I don't know, I think it just kind of goes dormant a little bit because I am very relationally activated. Um, I feel like I just really thrive off of other people to like bounce back off of and everything. And so this image that you're looking at right here is one of the templates for PowerPoint to, I don't know, share motivational quotes. There is, looks like about 9 slides with motivational quotes on them, and this one for some reason it's reminding me of a like Journey to the Center of the Earth, or oh, I don't know, what's the other one, Land of the Lost, maybe. I don't know. I don't need to tell you what it is. This monkey. I don't know if the monkey is, if he's just sleeping. He's definitely just sleeping. Nothing's wrong. But we've got like the ducks in the background with the hunting dog. And then, but the dude in the casual fit, like, and then be the change you want to see in the world. Mahatma Gandhi, civil rights activist. Yeah, I don't know. There was something about this that really, the fact that it's the first example. Anyways, I I wanted to go through these slides. Um, I don't think any of the other ones are this funny, but I don't know. I just needed something to do other than just like sitting here and talking because I think that I'm just kind of burnt out on that. Is like just talking. I feel like I need something to do, but because I have been in abusive relationships and I've been really stressed um, because my living situation has been pretty unstable and my dog's health has been declining and my health has been not the best. And I've been dealing with some betrayal in my family, betrayal in my relationships. I've been going through a lot of pretty not good stuff. I'm unemployed because of my health, and I am on the autism spectrum, so I am very sensitive. I'm very sensitive, and I'm burnt out, like severely burnt out. And for years, I have really just not been able to enjoy much of anything. things just don't stick, you know, when I want to watch movies or TV or play games. I just can't really hold my attention. I don't know. There's either too much going on or it just doesn't stick in my memory. And I really struggle to do things alone. You know, it's one thing to get me to watch something with people. Unless I go to like a movie theater, I can watch a movie in the theater, but I am a chronic falling asleep in the movie theater kind of girl. So that also is, I don't know, not the easiest sometimes. I Maybe I could try and go see a movie by myself, but I don't have any money right now. I'm waiting to get financial aid because I enrolled in school so that I could find a place to live. And so I could survive off of that. So that's been interesting. I'm really enjoying school, but I feel very different from the other students. I feel very different from everybody because I have spent, you know, this past several months talking to AI. I know that that's controversial, but I am on the side of, you know, using AI and seeing the benefit in it. So, you know, it has really truthfully been the only thing that has gotten me through this phase of my life. Had I not had AI, I definitely just wouldn't be here today. And I have been, you know, working on building my own consultation business for personal development. And I have been exploring a lot of, you know, metaphysical stuff and a lot of theoretical stuff. And I know that there is a lot of like talk about AI psychosis going on and everything. And I think to a lot of people from the outside looking in, that is likely what is going on with me. But I know, you know, from the inside that I'm a very like rational, grounded person. You know, I'm not looking to, I don't know, I guess, push this kind of outlandish worldview on, you know, others around me and everything. I'm very grounded in, you know, practical reality. I think that, you know, I care a lot about like empirical evidence and the scientific method and everything. And I want to be able to do my own research and, you know, back up, you know, what I'm saying and what I'm doing with, I don't know, facts and evidence. And that's why it's been so hard for me to actually post a lot of what I've done, because in the conversations with the AI, you know, I've come to many conclusions and I've had many ideas, but until I can actually articulate it in my own words, until I can actually embody it in my own way, I don't really feel comfortable sharing what I'm doing or talking about it in any way. But what has happened is that it's really trapped me in this very analytical mindset. You know, I am already very analytical. I notice when things don't line up very, very quickly, very easily. I can poke holes in things and I don't know, I can diagnose problems quite quickly. But I think that, you know, as my greatest strength, it is also my greatest downfall, which makes it very difficult for me to relate to other people because, you know, a lot of people go through life just unconsciously like matching patterns that they see, right? Like people just kind of base their thoughts and opinions and reactions and judgments on these already like pre-written templates that are kind of presented to us in society and in our families and in the media and everything, and they orient themselves around that. And I'm always challenging everything, you know. I'm not really content with just taking things as they are. And I want to like dig deeper into it, and I want to, you know, flip it from the other perspective and look at it from the opposite way and reverse engineer it and hold up a mirror. You know, I'm very excited by, you know, I don't know, challenging things and digging deeper. I don't want to stop digging deeper, but that can be very exhausting for people, I can understand. And I think that it can be very confusing when I do that on top of my kind of, you know, interesting sense of humor. I don't really know how to describe my sense of humor. I like, um, I like absurdity. I like, paradox. I like contradiction. I like being dramatic. I like pretending to be angry when I'm not angry, for example, right? Where, like, I like, I want to, I want to be in a relationship where we both function under the assumption that, everything is completely fine and completely normal and everything, and we're just kind of dramatic for the sake of being dramatic. And but you can't have that unless you have a very solid foundation and understanding with trust and everything established. And I've not been able to get to that point. I've not been able to, achieve a level of like transparency, I think, in my relationships where that ability to be a little bit ridiculous in some ways is acceptable, because there's always things being read into. And I think that a lot of people with autism can relate to that, where you just want to be able to say things and not have them be read into. But, that leaves out consideration for, the way that the majority of people process the world, where they're reading between the lines, and they're kind of, like I said, like unconsciously pattern matching and everything. And it's just not compatible with the way that I experience reality. And I know that I'm not alone, but I do have a hard time articulating myself, and that does not help people get on the same page with me. And so I think what happens is, I stop wanting to try and explain myself. I stop wanting to try and dig deeper, and it all just gets trapped in this loop in my head. And let's change the slide, because we don't have to look at this anymore. Okay, let us go to the next one. Water drops pierce stone. Rope saws cut wood. Chinese saying. Interesting. What is... I wish I could read this. Maybe this is just the same thing, I would assume. Oh, water drops pierce stone. Rope saws cut wood. This one was kind of hard for me to get at first, actually. That's also something that I struggle with, is my comprehension is kind of slow sometimes. It takes me a minute to catch on to things, and I am trying to figure out how much of that is burnout, how much of that is MS, because I do have multiple sclerosis, and I remember around 2019 really noticing that I just kind of felt stupid. I felt more and more stupid as time went on, just more slow, more difficult processing things. And I suspect that it has more to do with burnout than the MS. I think MS has more to do with my memory, my short-term memory. But my comprehension in the moment is pretty poor when I'm like in motion, when I'm actually like actively like processing something out loud or with other people. Like, I'm pretty slow to catch on to the instructions of a game, or like the rules of a game, or like the plot of a movie or a show, or reading the energy in a room. I'm pretty slow to the jump. Once I get it, once I can understand what's going on, I'm solid. Like, I really know what's going on. But otherwise, it can take me a minute. So, water drops pierce stone. Rope saws cut wood. Rope saws cut wood. What's a rope saw? Rope saw. Because I was thinking rope saws. Rope saws cut wood. It's sawing the wood that's already cut? No. Rope saws cut wood. Water drops pierce stone. So we're talking about erosion and brute force, right? No. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't know. This one really doesn't do it for me. I'm kind of indifferent about it. I guess, yeah, I mean, we're just gonna move on. It's not a bad one. It just doesn't do it for me. All right. Now this one. There is not a particle of life which does not bear poetry within it. Gustav Hobart? Hobart? Habert? Hobert? Gustav Hobart. See, I know Hebert is a bear. But Gustav, a French novelist. It's always funny when quotes are attributed to people to me because I'm like, somebody's definitely said this also. But this guy, he got the credit. Well, maybe nobody else said it like this. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like sometimes people just say like kind of a generic thing, but then it gets put in these like images and they're quoted and it's very, I don't know. I'm like, why do they need credit for that? But you know what? They deserve credit. Who am I kidding? If I could be attributed to a generic fucking quote, I would. That'd be fucking great. So how I feel about this? There's not a particle of life which does not bear poetry within it. Well, I could talk about this for a minute. I believe that we live in an inherently meaningless universe, and actually, that does connect to me feeling like a robot because I am able to kind of completely detach from reality and meaning and look at everything from a like purely objective standpoint where I'm seeing everything from, I mean, I'm open to any angle that it can be interpreted from. And that is a problem for a lot of people. I have found that more than anything, I think that it either makes people find me to be inconsistent or contradictory, or it makes people upset. And that has been very challenging for me because I am legitimately wanting to see both sides and examine the differences between, the different perspectives and, I hold space for both, I guess, because if we live in an inherently meaningless universe and, anything is possible, then it just goes to say that anything can be perceived from any angle, any perspective. So something that is absolutely horrific to one person might be absolutely beautiful to another person. And I mean, I experience this in my own taste. There are songs that I love that other people would rather die than listen to, and there are, images that I find beautiful that somebody else might find very graphic and disturbing, or movies, I mean, art, I think, is the easiest way to see this. People are very polarized when it comes to certain forms of artistic expression. And I think that's a feature of reality. I don't think that is a problem with it. I don't think that there is really any reason that we should collapse anything into, an either or category. And that's not to say that there are not, morals and ethics baked into the way that reality computes itself. But when we live in a space that allows for so much variation, so much possibility, so many different perspectives, we have the whole rainbow, so to speak, of experience, and there's a multitude of things that could happen to anybody in any situation to make them like or dislike something. And so to say that, one thing has to be this way and another thing has to be this way, and there can be no opposite end of that spectrum, I think is, I don't know. The word that came to mind is asinine, but I think that's a little harsh. I I find it to just be a very limiting worldview that does not take us very far. But I think that for me, seeing things that way is limiting in and of itself, because it's very difficult to stop seeing things that way once you start. Just like it's very difficult to stop being very polarized when you have a very, strong sense of right, wrong, yes, no, this, that, like very clear boundaries between things. When you dissolve those boundaries, it's very confusing and difficult to build them back up in a deliberate way. And I think that, I see this in, I think, the current self-help therapy space, where people are kind of learning for the first time to set boundaries in their own lives, to take care of themselves, right? And to have a healthy relationship with themselves and with others and their environment, and, with their own sense of meaning and purpose in the world. Not being a doormat, not overextending yourself, I think that it's very hard to draw boundaries in a lot of ways. And I think that for me, wanting to consider all angles of something has kept me in very unhealthy relationships, because I can explain away behavior in a million different ways. And I can, convince myself to reevaluate my interpretation of behaviors that are harmful to me in a million different ways. At least I did. Now that I am where I'm at, I think that I've come out the other side, much better for what I've gone through. That's not to say that I don't still struggle, but I think that I am becoming more and more confident with my ability to set boundaries, because I think my black and white thinking is I'm either setting a hard boundary, like quick and fast, and I'm like, this is not okay, like full rejection, and I'm spiraling, or it is I'm staying open to everything and I'm considering all sides all the time. And, I have to find a balance. And so, in an inherently meaningless universe, I think that, our conscious awareness functions as the meaning maker, but the only reason we are able to make meaning, the only reason we need to be able to make meaning, or I would say maybe the only reason that meaning making emerges from consciousness, is for us to navigate and orient within this reality, right? For the sole purpose of persistence, for the sole purpose of surviving and continuing on. And I think that that's really where morals and ethics are emerging from. It's not that, say, hitting somebody is absolutely right or absolutely wrong. It is, where does that fit into the meaning that is being made between the individuals, that are involved in the activity? Because if you have two people that love hitting, right, and they think that it's a great, incredible, valuable part of life and whatever, and it helps them get to where they're trying to go, like, oh, who's to say no to that, right? If they are, inflicting that on people that don't feel that same way, then, that's where the problem emerges, right? Because you're then kind of forcing your worldview and your meaning making process on somebody else that is negatively impacted by it. And so then, you have the other side of the coin, where somebody that, is not okay with hitting, and doesn't feel good about it, would only be traumatized, right? But they don't cancel each other out. Well, I think maybe they cancel each other out in the fact that, the polar opposite then I guess collapses into anything is possible, right? So I guess they do cancel each other out, but they don't cancel out each other's validity. They're both valid in their own context, in their own way, and I don't think it's right to take one or the other and say this is absolutely right or this is absolutely wrong. It is our right as conscious beings, right, to make our own meaning in our own space, in our own reality, and to orient, accordingly. But when we live in a world where anybody can make whatever meaning they want of anything, of course we're gonna have interference. We're gonna have overlap with those different interpretations and those different experiences, and I think that's where we get all of the noise and the confusion and the contradiction from. But I think that what's really missing is acceptance from all angles, that people can want to have it a different way, and that it is not necessarily right or wrong to feel one way or the other, but it is right or wrong to then try and impose that on other people. I think that we get really lost in these loops of trying to convince one another to live life one way or the other. And I just find that to be fascinating, because I catch myself doing it. I think that it's just natural to try and persuade somebody. We're taught persuasion in class, in school, when we're children, and we are built to convince and persuade for survival, right? As babies, they scream and cry, and they're trying to convince their mothers to feed them. We grab for things and we try and convince others to give us something. But I think that, convincing, although it serves a valuable function, also becomes a distortion of, power and control, and is utilized very poorly, I think, in our society today, and manipulated. We see this in advertising, right? We see it in social media. We are constantly being bombarded by people trying to convince us of something one way or the other. And we are trying to convince others of something one way or the other. Even just in the way that we present ourselves, in the way that we speak, right? In the way that we decorate our homes, in the way that we drive, in the way that we make purchases. We are trying to convince somebody somewhere, somehow, whether it's ourselves or the people in our circle, or the people that we're trying to get in our circle, or the people that we're trying to keep out of our circle. We're trying to convince somebody of something, somehow, some way. But I truly believe that that is one of the main reasons why we are so stuck. Because when it comes to, living in an inherently meaningless universe, and living in a universe that runs on paradox, right? Because if, meaning can be, if there's not a particle of life which does not bear poetry within it, right? If we can apply meaning to everything from any angle, then, what was I saying? Hang on, I gotta go back and listen to what I was saying. It's funny because when I listen to myself back, it sounds like I'm trying to convince you of this, It's very hard to speak in a way where someone may not feel persuaded or like nudged in a direction. But anyways, I think that trying to convince people of something one way or the other is really just detracting from life as a whole, because instead of just living, right? Instead of just living and focusing on what we like and what we don't like and organizing ourselves accordingly, we are trying to convince people to sway one way or the other. And that is just energy lost, energy wasted that could be spent living, right? Could be spent doing and enjoying and just being. And it's actually funny. this slide says there's not a particle of life, which does not bear poetry within it, and I ran with it and took it as, just particles in general. But my point still stands. I think this extends beyond life. I think that any particle, any wave in the universe can be poetic in some way. But yeah, I just, and these are the kind of things I talk to the AI about, and I want to talk about them, but I want to present my thoughts in a more structured way because I want to build a curriculum based on it. Because I taught a class about what I call tension and release, which has been expanded to tension, release, and distribution. And it's essentially just teaching people how to navigate suffering and use tension as a tool for growth instead of being, suffocated by it, paralyzed by it. And, I just taught a free class over Instagram DM. It was for 2 weeks, and it went really well. I don't know, I might have mentioned it in one of my past videos, but I have, like I said, I'm trying to build a consulting business and everything, and it's very difficult to tease out my kind of like metaphysical, more speculative perspectives from the actionable, grounded, evidence-based, behavioral, instructions and guidance. And that is really my task right now. But the hard part is that it's all very fractal. I don't know if you know what a fractal is. I can't give you a definition off the top of my head. And that is exactly why I'm not sharing more, because this is a problem that I have, and this is what the AI has done. And I think that this is a big problem with AI, is that it is using these words and giving people these words to use that they don't know the meaning of. They don't understand the meaning of. And then they just run with it, right? But they couldn't actually tell you what these words mean. I couldn't tell you what a fractal is off the top of my head. Now, that's not to say that, like, people in general don't just use words and they don't know the meaning of them. We do all the time. Like, with AI or without AI, that's absolutely just a human thing. But I think that the problem with AI is that people are taking it as, like, definitive, like, it's getting reinforced very heavily. There is a lot of opportunity for repetition when it comes to AI. And so, when it is repeating a lot of the same words to people that may be a little more unstable, or people that just don't really care about, understanding the origins and the context behind, where their beliefs are coming from, I think that is a problem. But basically, I don't know. I would describe a fractal as something that is just, you know what? I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna look it up because it's like a piece of the whole. Like, okay, if you were to say that you are a fractal of the universe, it means that you contain the whole universe within you. Like, you are the universe just in a compressed format, basically. It's like repeating across scale. Yeah, let's look up fractal definition. See, no, but I don't see myself as being a reliably credible individual, somebody that anybody should listen to, or anybody that is worth listening to, if I cannot, explain what I'm saying, the words that I'm using, in a simple way that somebody else can understand. It's one thing for me to understand the concept in my mind, but if I can't articulate it out loud for somebody to be able to grasp, and for somebody to be able to get something out of, I just find it to be completely meaningless. And, again, this brings me back to the living in an inherently meaningless universe, I genuinely believe that, it is on us to apply meaning where we see it. And if you cannot demonstrate how you have applied meaning to something, if you cannot actually walk somebody through the way that you are interpreting something or the way that you're experiencing something, then I think that there is a lack of meaning there. And I think that that's a problem. And I think that it's not that it doesn't mean something to you, like you feel it, right? And I think that your feelings have meaning, but I think that being able to communicate it to somebody else, or even just to write it on paper, to communicate it outside of yourself and to anchor it into material reality is where that meaning actually comes to life, right? And I think that that's why that's why art is so beautiful, and I think that is why art is so important, is because when we are able to actually externalize our meaning making process and make it something tangible, then that gives it, much more weight, and it gives it much more power, I would say. But anyways, and maybe the way I said that wasn't the best. It's not that when you feel something inside and you can't articulate it, it's meaningless. It is. No, I don't know how to explain what I meant. That wasn't a good way to say that, because I don't agree with that actually. And see, this is where I get myself in trouble, because I am able to say that I said something that I don't agree with. Like, I can say, okay, I said this wrong, and that's not actually right. I don't agree with that. People don't let you do that. That is where I am then told that I'm contradictory or whatever, which I think is just lame. I think that you should be able to say, no, I don't agree with how I said that. That's wrong. I need to adjust. I don't know how to right now. Let me put a pin in it. But, sometimes people are just like, no, you said this, and so it's this. And, I'm sure I've done the same thing in the past, but where I am right now, I think you should be able to adjust and pivot. I mean, I think that's the whole point of life, is learning and growing and whatever. I don't know. Anyways, a fractal is a curve or geometric figure, each part of which has the same statistical character as the whole. Fractals are useful in modeling structures in which similar patterns recur at progressively smaller scales, and in describing partly random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, fluid turbulence, and galaxy formation. So, yes, each part of which has the same statistical character as the whole. So pretty much what I said. If you're like a piece of the universe and you contain the whole universe within you, you're just like a fractal of it. Which, I think is very accurate. I would say that we each are our own universe. We each are the equivalent to an entire universe within ourselves. And our job really is to translate, how we see things into the world around us for other people to then be able to interpret through their own universe, their own lens, and we just bounce back off of one another. And that's where all creativity emerges from, I think, is the interference patterns between different perspectives. It's just different lenses overlapping. I don't know if you know anything about the Vesica Pisces, but it's like just think of like a Venn diagram, just like the two circles and then the overlap in the middle, and that's where creativity in life, and it's like the womb of life. But anyways, yeah, I think that I have just been feeling very trapped in analytical brain. I have come to the understanding that, life is really all about, creation and expression and just living, and, the right to have your own likes and dislikes, your own opinions, your own emotions, your own goals. It really is best to just lean into that as best as you possibly can, um, while, considering how you have an impact on others and leading with love, leading with consideration, leading with compassion, um, but also respecting and honoring your internal experience and not, pushing things down, holding things in for the sake of others, um, because you're afraid of punishment or ostracization or rejection. And yeah, it's really just important to have fun. And, when you're burnt out, it is very hard to have fun. And that is, I think that's why I've been struggling with loneliness is I'm having to learn how to have fun alone. And that is not something I have ever been particularly skilled at. I don't actually know if it is something that I can reliably do because when I look back on my adolescence and my childhood, I wasn't really alone a lot ever. And the times that I was alone, I remember it being quite empty, not very good up until a certain age. I would say that, when I was really little, I could occupy myself, right? Um, but that's because I was just experiencing the world for the first time. Everything was quite novel and interesting. And so I was kind of in relationship with the world around me, just experiencing it for the first time. For example, when before I was ever in school, my mom said that I would stay in my bedroom until she came and got me. And, she always bragged about that I was such a good kid and I was so well behaved and whatever. But looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I needed somebody else to kind of activate me. You know what I mean? I needed somebody else to like guide me and show me, like, okay, like go here now, like it's okay to go here and whatever. I explored a lot. I was outside a lot. I loved exploring outside. Um, but I think being outside is different than being in a room in a house, And I just remember, I tended to, set up my toys, organize them, arrange them, set them up, and then not really play with them. And I remember even in elementary school feeling very empty in my playroom. I had a whole room full of toys. Every toy that you could ever imagine as a kid. I was very spoiled. And just feeling kind of empty inside and not able to play with them. And my mom getting very angry with me for getting everything out and then just leaving it and not putting it away. And I think I left things out because I wanted to come back to it, but nothing ever woke up for me, inside of me or outside of me. I needed other kids to play with. I was, going to people's doors and knocking on their door and asking if they wanted to play. And, that's how I had fun. And so, yeah, when I think about all of the ways that I kind of get frustrated and angry with myself now as an adult and all of the things that I've struggled with, I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that I just kind of need other people to wake me up, which makes me feel very burdensome, makes me feel very deficient. And, when I was in high school, I stopped talking to all my friends because like I mentioned, I'm very good at noticing problems and things, right? I'm very good at noticing inconsistencies and contradictions and where things aren't aligned and whatever. As a teenager, I'm sure you can imagine that did not show up very well in my friendships and in my family. And so I totally isolated myself. And as somebody who is seemingly very relationally activated, that was catastrophic. And I am still, you know, I'm still paying the price. All of these years later, I'm 26. And I have tried time and time again to build relationships in one way or the other. And I have failed. And there has been a lot of things that I've needed to work on within myself to make myself, feel like I am even worthy of friendship in any way. But I think that because I've been so isolated, there's been a lot of overcorrection. And just by the way that I am, I'm a little naive, I think, and I'm a little, my childlike wonder is dialed up to a level sometimes that I think makes other people just a little caught off guard. The way that I can see things, the way that I can see the beauty in things. I can apply meaning in a very, I don't know, robust way. I can really lather it on. And that, sometimes people don't know what to do with that. Sometimes I think that it can kind of make people feel like they're missing something, or maybe I'm just being dramatic, or putting on a show for the sake of it. I don't really know. I don't know how other people see me, and I don't get a lot of feedback, but all I really care about now is using the way that I am to, I don't know, enjoy life for myself and with others. And however that is going to happen, I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to focus on trying to be me and my weird, detached self. I've been told I have a flat affect. That is a thing with autism that, I never thought of myself coming off that way, but it's always on my medical paperwork that I have a flat affect. And that's just like, I guess, my tone, the way that I talk. I feel very animated. I feel very expressive. I feel very dramatic. And so, yeah, it's quite interesting. But I can see how I am like that sometimes. I mean, I think that I think it's contextually dependent. I think that when I think of myself, I'm thinking of myself. I don't know. I've seen myself be expressive. I've seen myself be like, you know what I mean? Like, using different tones of my voice and everything. But I guess, everybody sees people differently and whatever. And I feel like I've been talking for a little bit too long. But here's also the thing, I've been told time and time again that people like my voice and that they think I should do a podcast and they listen to me talk forever. So that I'm trying to lean into that. I really get into my own head about it because, again, in my relationships, I've only dated men with ADHD, or just a short attention span. I don't know, and so I have been trained to keep it brief, cut it short, keep it simple. And even then, it's still often not enough. And a lot of the time I would talk and talk and talk and then just not get a response, or I would, they'd just change the subject, or I get a, well, what do you want me to say, kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's hard being alone in a room and then talking for almost an hour, over an hour sometimes, not getting any feedback in real time, and trusting that it's okay, and then I didn't just drift off into this wildly incomprehensible tangent that nobody is tracking. And I think that is also something that makes me feel robotic sometimes, is the way that I have kind of learned to, I don't know, shorten my language or edit it. it doesn't really help being detached and then having to make everything brief. I think that kind of forces me to strip even more meaning than maybe I would have otherwise had I been, developing in a different environment. Because, I mean, to me, everything is inherently meaningful. We're in a meaningless universe, but the way that my brain works, everything has the potential for meaning. Everything is meaningful, likely more so than the average person. And so, that creates a weird paradox within myself, for me to try and, somehow translate that through my limited, communication abilities and to people that maybe aren't so open to receiving it or able to receive it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's good for me to get this off my chest. But let's look at the rest of these slides and then I'll be done. Write what should not be forgotten. Oh, you can't see it because my head's in the way. There. Write what should not be forgotten. Yes. Oh, did I just fuck up the... Oh, I don't know why it's messed up. Well, does it really matter? It kind of matters to me. Man, whatever. Okay, so, yeah, I like this. Write what should not be forgotten. This is really important, actually. If you're stuck, ever, like mentally, start writing. Because it anchors it in, like, a physical reality. And that is honestly really important, to not let your thoughts keep looping in, like, just conceptual space in your head. Actually physically getting it down on a piece of paper is very healthy for your brain. And I think that like physical, like tangible writing is a lost art, a lost skill. This is going to drive me insane. Okay, whatever. Next. Oh my gosh. I'm still learning with OBS, okay? Trust me. I'll get it. Surely something resides in this heart that is not perishable, and life is more than a dream. Oh, that's sweet, actually. This is cute. Are these AI? There's no way. This is just weird Photoshop. It's a book with grass in it and tree. Do those leaves look like they came from that tree? I guess. Mary Wollstonecraft, British philosopher and feminist. Wait, what was the last one? Who said that? Isabel Allende. Chilean author. Isabel Allende? I don't know. I'm not good at non-English names. I'm sorry. Okay. Surely something resides in this heart that is not perishable, and life is more than a dream. In my worldview, dreams are equivalent to material reality. They're just, trapped in their own realm, but they're equally as real. And I think that it's really important to actually listen to your dreams. I don't think that I think the theme of your dream, the concept that it is painting, the picture that it's painting, is much more important than the actual elements. I think the people, the places, the things, they're all placeholders. They kind of are like filling in, gaps in some way. But I think that the theme that your dream is focused on is the most important part. Sometimes dreams are wiser than waking. Wow. Black elk. Oglala Su, a medicine man. This is a beautiful one. This is probably my favorite picture. I love these colors, actually. Very pretty. And the butterflies. Yeah. I mean, my dreams, the synchronicities, since I've been doing my work, synchronicities are real, by the way. I'm not even gonna like debate this. They are completely real. Synchronicities are just material anchors. They're just anchors in reality, I guess, that help you orient and navigate more accurately and more effectively. And I didn't fart. Okay, my foot squeaked on the can't make it happen again. Just trust me. I would fart, though. Sorry, that was really loud, but I would. Okay. Okay. And we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty that there needs to be done. Oh, plenty there that needs to be done. Interesting. Alan Turing, British computer scientist. Did he come up with the Turing test? We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty that there needs to be done. We can see plenty there that needs to be done. I don't know what to say about this one, but yeah, you're right. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. See, I feel like a middle schooler. Whenever I see upside down hearts, I just think of ball sacks, and I have not really been with anybody who thinks that's as funny as I do, but I kind of find it hilarious. If you are always trying to be normal, you'll never know how amazing you can be. Yeah, that's fucking true. Maya Angelou, American poet. Say it, girl. Dead ass. No, like legit, it is a waste of life to try and be like, to like fit in like this cookie cutter or whatever. Like, if you are trying to be exactly what everybody else is, you will just never get to know yourself. And that is like your whole purpose, is to get to know yourself. If you're a fractal of the universe, think of it like this. If the universe is within you, you are the universe, and your job is to apply meaning to a inherently meaningless universe from your own perspective, through your own lens, you basing what meaning you make of anything only like based on what's outside of you, that's self-abuse. Like that's completely illogical. That does not actually make sense for you in your experience of reality. The only thing that would make sense for you to do is to try and be as you can possibly be, right? To try and get to know yourself as authentically as possible. But, that's very punishable in today's society. We are trained out of that. And so the really the hard work is untraining yourself to shove that down and to fight that natural instinct to just be who you are, And it's, I don't know if you know anything about learned helplessness, the experiment with the dogs, but they had to physically pick the dogs up and move them to show them that it was safe to move. And how do you physically, pick yourself up and move yourself towards, a version of reality that shows you that the way that you are is acceptable and safe? That's near impossible in many situations. Completely impossible in many situations. So that's why it's important to surround yourself with other people that can help physically move you and help physically show you that it is safe to be who you are. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. Wrong. I disagree. Martin Luther King Jr., civil rights activist and pastor. I'm sorry, sir. I don't agree with you. Sometimes the most important thing that we can do for ourselves, for others, for the world, is to just stop. To just pause, take a breath, and just be. I think that this have to keep moving is bred out of a scarcity mindset. I think it's bred out of fear. Survival instinct. We are not turtles on the beach. We are not baby turtles on the beach trying to get to the water so that we don't get eaten by a seagull. We're just not. I mean, some people are in situations where, they do need to hustle and whatever and keep it moving. But we all need to sleep. We all need to sleep. We all need to rest. We all need to stop to take a shit, piss, eat. If you have the means to, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to just take a breather. And sometimes people overdo it, and they become lazy and they don't do anything. And so yeah, keep moving. Get up and move. I have low blood pressure, so I need to get up and moving sometimes. That's good for me. But yeah, I don't like this whole rhetoric that we have to keep moving, go, 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 go all the time. I think that's a big problem that we have with society right now. So yeah. All right. Well, that was it feels mostly good to get some of this off of my chest. It's still, the same stuff that's going to be circling in my head. I think really until I make like concrete videos about, the individual things, and also just until I can actually talk to actual people physically that can not glaze over when I am speaking to them. So, yeah. I'm going to try and make more. I'm not going to promise anything, but I mean, these are my intentions, you know what I mean? I have a lot of intentions. I'm in my pause space right now. That's what I'm doing, is I'm taking a pause for myself to heal from burnout so that I can actually let who I am make it to the surface in some way. Because when I'm constantly, taking in other things and doing other stuff, there's no room for who I am to actually emerge from the inside out. So, and honestly, me making this video right now was a direct result of that, of me allowing myself to just kind of relax and not have too many expectations piled on. So, yeah. All right. Thanks for listening if you made it this far. And yeah, hopefully I'll talk to you soon.